is only identified at a time of emergency. Let us always be prepared.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Hello there, a very good evening. It's another beautiful Wednesday and time for a get-together, if you know what I mean. Well, the political scene is getting more and more interesting. What does this tell us? That 2019 is around the corner, the election year. So, what do you expect? Political stories on the package tonight. In the past few days, the passage of the electoral budget has dominated national discourse. Now, the process has begun. We have the stories. You know, on Wednesdays, the Federal Executive Council sits and does good things to put the nation's development to the next level. Today is no exception. Some communities will smile as they are at the receiving end of the goodies. Of course, back to the political arena, we shall tell you more about who is rooting for who in 2019 general elections. Lagos, we're told, is not an easy city to live in. How true is this? Find out from Lagosians. These plus some business news, agriculture and social welfare. Something has happened at the U.S. Embassy that travelers to that country might not like. Find out. Don't think we have forgotten about the companion segments that brings you tidbits of the foreign scene and updates in the sports world. Now, let's not dwell on the prospects. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. As I always say, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. I am Fatima Abbas Hassan. You're welcome to News Extra. Now, we begin with the meeting of the Federal Executive Council. The Federal Executive Council has given approval for the augmentation of an existing road contract in Enugu State from an initial sum of 10.3 billion naira in 2012 to 15.734 billion naira. State House correspondent Jide Onifadi was there and brings us the details.
Is the series of roads captured as Umana, Indiagu, Agba, Ebenebe, Amansi, Oka, and spurs to Umumba Road in Section 2 in Enugu State.
Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, was the only one that got through with his request, and he gives reasons for this augmentation.
Because of lack of appropriate budgeting and funding, all of these projects could not be completed. There were also failures in the implementation as we inherited it. There was also the need to provide for erosion control measures and drains. So that has led to a revision of the existing contract.
Babatunde Fashola explains that the contract for the roads was awarded in 2012, and these are spurs of the Enugu-Onitsha Highway to 6 different communities. This augmentation, he says, would allow the completion of these roads. The Federal Executive Council meeting was presided over by Acting President Yemi Osinbajo. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
In the meantime, the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has inaugurated various projects worth 5 billion naira constructed in various parts of Zamfara State with a charge on beneficiaries to imbibe the maintenance culture. The inauguration of the projects, which cuts across various sectors, is part of activities marking the 7th year of Governor Yari's administration. Hairu Umar has more on that report.
The project inaugurated by the acting president include a general hospital, renovated, expanded and provided with modern equipment to improve healthcare delivery system. Others are reconstructed Abubakar Chino Model Primary School, Government Girls College, and a 12.8-kilometer bypass road all in Talatam Mafara local government area. The acting president commended the Zamfara state government for the provision of the facilities despite the security challenges facing the state.
I'd like to reiterate the total determination of the federal government to support and work with the state government to permanently deal with and defeat these challenges, and to ensure that this state remains a promising land of agriculture, of commerce, of tourism and hospitality.
Governor Abdulaziz Yari says the projects were informed by his desire to impact positively on the lives of the people in the state. He also applauded the federal government's initiative of deploying additional troops to intensify the fight against armed bandits in the state.
We hope this tempo will be sustained so that our state will be able to reclaim its lost glory by being the most peaceful state, hospitable throughout the federation.
The project inaugurated were among the over 200 executed by Governor Abdulaziz Yari administration. In Gusau, Halil Muhammad Umar, NTA News.
Well, beyond the expression, road construction as an infrastructure phenomenon, the roadmap to strengthen linkages by the federal government is rekindling hope for the people across Nasarawa, Benue, Plateau, Bauchi and Gombe states, following commitments of fixing their highways to promote social integration and economic development. Hamza Musa Makarfi, who has been following this development, now gives us a situation report.
As in the center characterized by sustaining attention and quality infrastructure, so it is expected for the states as hallmark of bridging through federalism. When more than 670 kilometers of roads crisscrossing the north central and northeast come to fruition, profound changes to all economic sectors are expected to manifest.
Road development remains crucial to agricultural development in Nigeria.
This shows that the government has the interest of the people at heart, and we are indeed very, very appreciative.
When government will repair the road for us, we will get more life and enjoying the road. There's nothing like accident.
To the people of Akwanga town, the connecting hub to all the areas of the road contracts within the axis and beyond is a pledge to support the government without recourse to unnecessary agitation, says the Chumada, the paramount ruler of the community.
We don't have any problem with that at all. A handful of surveyors came around. This is a development I've not seen over decades.
In a wider context, the Nasarawa state government is also talking to communities along the routes on their expected roles, just as the leadership in other benefiting states are doing to their people.
To quickly support and enhance the commencement of this project so that you would have a brand new road that will open opportunities for commercial, business, education, and what have you.
As the federal government goes to work, stakeholders say the new focus of the Buhari administration on roads development in the country is a testimony that will stand the test of time. In Lafia, Hamza Musa Makarfi, NTA News.
Now, with 184 days to the 2019 general elections, it has become imperative that the Electoral Commission is provided with funds for timely preparations. To that effect, the Senate Committee on and scrutiny of 189.2 billion naira budget for the 2019 general elections, as presented by INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo tells us more.
A free, fair and credible election begins with adequate and timely preparations, and that basically falls under the purview of the Electoral Commission. This perhaps is the preoccupation of the Commission, especially against the backdrop of series of by-elections it has held over the period, and still with more to cope with within the current year 2018, coupled with the preparations for the 2019 general elections by the electoral body. This presupposes that INEC has a lot on its hand within the time limit before the nation towards 2019. This budget defense was in response to the call by all sections of the country and interest to ensure that INEC is financially empowered to begin preparations for the election. The Commission's chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, presented a breakdown of the proposal and why it is higher than the 2015 election budget of 120 billion naira.
The budget is broken down into 4 components. We have the electoral cost, the operational cost, and that is 134.4 billion. And that is meant for the procurement of sensitive and non-sensitive materials, the allowances, payment of allowances, the election technology cost. And that is 27.5 billion. It's about IT-related procurement. It's the election admin cost. And that admin cost is 22.6 billion. That is a difference of 69 billion naira. What is responsible for this difference? First, in 2015, we had a voter population of about 70 million. Then you have a little over 82 million registered voters as we go into the 2019 general election. This will increase.
The Senate committee demanded some explanations from the INEC chairman, especially on issues of voter registration and education, and why the reduction in allocation for contingency.
Mr. Chairman, continuous voters registration is of great concern to Nigerians,
because there seems to be increased confidence in many people wanting to exercise their right.
In relation to the same provision that we have made in the EPP budget that is before this distinguished committee, is there a duplication? Hasn't the National Assembly appropriated enough for the exercise? My response is as follows, and I want to take us a little back. Distinguished senators will recall that in 2017, you appropriated the sum of 1.2 billion for continuous voter registration. And the Electoral Act says that we should register voters continuously, not intermittently, meaning all year round.
The National Assembly is seriously committed to ensuring that we give all the necessary support to INEC to ensure free and fair elections, and we ensure that the necessary budgetary allocations have been given to INEC.
At the end of the ongoing budget defense, the committee is expected to present its report at plenary for consideration and approval. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
And from the House of Representatives, issues relating to proposals of permanent voters' cards, disparity in number of constituencies for political seats, as well as duplication of requirement data, dominated interaction between the House Committee on Electoral and Political Parties Matters when management of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, appeared before it to defend the supplementary budget for the year 2019 general elections. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali has the details.
This is the first time in the country's political history that the Independent National Electoral Commission is appearing before the House Committee on Electoral and Political Parties Matters for Budget Defense. The defense hearing highlights the commitment of stakeholders to ensure that due process and the rule of law are not only prioritized but adhered to in ensuring transparency and credibility in the entire electoral process.
It is also important that the budget of INEC be made to show more widespread public accountability and transparency of the Commission, which is a significant reform in itself.
The supplementary budget proposal for the 2019 general elections amounting to over 189 billion, 69 billion naira above the budgeted sum for 2015 general elections, elicited questions from the lawmakers.
During the 2015, where some of the INEC staffs are complaining about they don't have diesel, they don't have petrol also. So I want you to look at this amount very well, 105 million.
23 additional political parties were unveiled, and to ask him, because this budget has been submitted much earlier before the 23 new parties were unveiled, and to ask if this has been taken into consideration.
We have registered over 12 million new voters. I want to know, when will the permanent voters card be given to them?
INEC Chairman Professor Mahmoud Yakubu says the proposed sum compared to money spent on elections by some other African democracies with far less population is reasonable in view of the sheer number of the registered voters in Nigeria, which at the moment stands at over 82 million.
Managing elections in reality requires a lot of improvisation. But we have made provision in a systematic way in this budget that this is the way we want to respond from the experience of holding elections in the past. For instance, in Bayelsa, we not only have to hire boats. Honorable, you know that we have to hire gunboats.
With just about 6 months to February 16, 2019, which is the commencement date for the general elections, the House assures of speedy scrutiny and subsequent passage of the supplementary budget. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
In the meantime, members of the National Assembly have been advised to put behind their personal interest and uphold the national interest by reconvening the National Assembly to consider executive communications. Guests on Good Morning Nigeria reiterated this while discussing the topic, breaking the impasse in the National Assembly. Oyeyemi Ajayi has the details.
Nigerians have continued to react to the decision of the National Assembly not to reconvene as expected on Tuesday. Some say this action is not in the interest of the country as a whole, knowing that the 2019 general elections are fast approaching. Part of the issues on the program is the need for the Senate President Bukola Saraki to follow the path of Senator Godswill Akpabio by resigning, urging politicians not to unnecessarily overheat the polity for their own good alone at the detriment of the people.
I think what we are descending into now is more or less getting into hate speech by one party against the other. And that is frightening because it's overheating the polity.
The Senate itself, with due respect to them, they are not totally, not all of them, but most of them are not totally honest with Nigerians. It seems that personal interest has overridden the national interest, and they are trying to load it on everybody.
The guests agreed that the National Assembly is the lifeline of the people, and therefore they should listen and yield to the pressure of the people by reconvening to address salient issues before it, especially the INEC budget.
I want to call on the Senate, I want to call on the House of Representatives to look at Nigeria, to look at the project that is ahead of Nigeria, the 2019 election, the welfare of the people, and they need to fast track, because the efficacy and efficiency of any legislature is measured in terms of its capacity to come forth with proactive legislations, laws for the good governance of the particular political entity. This seems to be lacking in this scenario.
Even if the National Assembly were to pass INEC budget, it is just an infinitesimal part of it. It doesn't solve the problem, because the Independent National Electoral Commission cannot conduct election without the backing of the other security agencies.
In Abuja, Oyeyemi Ajayi, NTA News.
You know Nigerians and their penchant for last-minute rush? Well, INEC is about to contend with this, as Nigerians are beginning to besiege various registration centers to obtain their permanent voters' cards. Even though the deadline for the closure of the exercise has been moved to the end of the month, INEC in Kano is not taking chances, as it has increased the registration centers from 44 to 76. Muhammad Rabiu Ali, however, reports that the Commission needs to increase its staff strength to cope with the situation.
Kano State had additional 32 registration centers designated by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the 2 weeks extension of the ongoing continuous voter registration exercise. Eligible voters besieged such centers to obtain their permanent voters card before the deadline.
Says President Buhari has always been a passionate advocate for the use of PVCs and card readers in elections in Nigeria, mindful of the role that card readers and PVCs played in the election that brought him into office. Up ahead, more support for President Muhammadu Buhari as for 2019 as his spouse gets honored for service to humanity. These are more after these messages.